get the word out.
Expanded so much, the price goes up.
But now, what's interesting
Right now, some type of
ran all the negative stuff that we use.
They're gonna have a lot more.
There's been all of the negative stuff. I really didn't realize.
we're on the growth was. The old sugar cane.
All that to
And so you drop around like this, well, we can jump
as his sign.
sugar cane.
Yep, because now it's all.
The guy at that same negative stuff. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much. She said
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. So our guest, Ms. Cheek, they're running a few minutes late. They did let me know that they would be here a few minutes late, so they're on their way. We'll get started as soon as they get here with a brief introduction and get started.
I'm on the first row across from the vet school with a blow time and a blow time. You're welcome.
Wow, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. But we stopped going to the game.
Big tie up on 12.
Yeah, with the idea, the grandkids run by the kids and all, we watch the grandkids. However, I gotta admit, I let you guys on my case, 75 out of 10 was flawed. My grandson is in the band, so we bought 17 tickets. He's a freshman. Yeah, Florida this week. The following is Texas A&M following the next game.
The next one on election day will actually be US.
Okay. Yeah, we only
And the next one is Texas A&M.
Texas A&M on county committee because we're going to embarrass him and then look at that.
You had a what girl of us away from
So anyway, so I'm just saying that those are my two
And I went to one game. That's a big hopefully that's that's not the case right now. Hang on. It is. Friday was on your east. So you must miss the thing.
I do, yes.
The salads, everything will be served in a few minutes, okay? and getting it ready. Everybody doing all right? All right, welcome to press.
And they were eating the hot dog. So you told me it's going to go bad. I'm like, just give it to me. Just give it to me. And then it wasn't like you know, transfer. That's how we did it.
Y'all trying to serve me this morning. So like eat dinner. Eat dinner. Enjoy dinner.
It's a real compliment.
That's a very
Which is just excellent.
Well, we lived in the West End. I would say that
I'm going to talk to
people up there don't know how to they don't know how to they season very and it just it was especially I mean I brought a lot of culture with us in my our family because a lot of stuff and then sometimes they would complain about this supper is good but it's too spicy like season so much not invited to my house. Anytime we're having people tell me, oh, I just changed down how many people love it, it's okay, I already know I'm starting to like it.
I had a arts and and I got my friends on TV back and the guy called me up and said, I was at the Clayton over there and I was all in the truck I woke up on the air so he said, I got off the plane and I needed a job, so I was going to be a chef. They liked it. Next thing I opened a restaurant. And now it's working out. They won't let me leave. Never thought I'd do it.
I found out what's happening. And he came down, what, about 2.5 years ago. He came, his
Testing 1 2, testing 1 2, test 1 2, test 1 2, test 1 2. All right. Test 1 2, test. Test 1 2, 1 2. That should be good.
All righty, everybody. Tap, tap, tap. So our microphone isn't working, so I'm going to have to use my own God-given microphone and just speak very loudly to everybody. Good afternoon. Thank y'all for joining us for today's meeting of the Press Club. If you didn't know, you should know, because I see so many people in here have on their I voted stickers. We are in the middle of early voting for our statewide elections. And one of the biggest elections that's going to be happening is for our state attorney general. And there are two women who are in that runoff together, and I think that's pretty extraordinary that there are two ladies in that runoff together. And one of them is here today. So our Democratic candidate, Ms. Lindsey Cheek, is from New Orleans. She's worked as a trial attorney for quite some time. Her campaign slogan, lawyer for the people. And when I asked what I should say about Lindsey to best introduce her, lawyer for the people was something that was repeated not only on her website but also through her team when I reached out to them. So Lindsey's going to speak to us about her positions as, again, we are in the middle of our early voting for our runoff election. Ms. Cheek.
Thank y'all. Can y'all hear me? Yes. Okay. Yes, I am Lindsey Cheek. I'm your Democratic candidate for Attorney General. I am a lawyer for the people and will always be a lawyer for the people. My whole career has been litigating for the little guy, is what I like to say, meaning I represent everyday people against generally corporations or insurance entities who have harmed them. And that's what I intend to continue doing as your next Attorney General. I do love that there are two women in this race and also in the Secretary of State's race, right? So regardless of the outcome, I'm very happy and excited that for the first time ever, Louisiana is going to have two women at the top, right? Hopefully one of them is me. But I'm so glad to be here, y'all. It's unfortunate my opponent is not here today. I don't know what was more important than being here. But I am open to answering any questions any of y'all have. I'll come sit at your individual tables. I've spoken to most of you before, but if you have any questions for me, I'll take them now. Raise your hand if you voted already. Good. And you have a plan to vote in the next few days, yes? Questions? Yes, sir.
During COVID, we saw for dads and moms, many women with advanced degrees and in important positions. We're now seeing the judicial system seem to take forever to come to conclusions on charges. Particularly, I'm thinking of Donald Trump, but there are many other cases. If you're Attorney General, will you try to address what the public sees as not being able to get conclusions from the judicial system?
Are you talking about in a criminal, on the criminal side, or in what context, I guess?
It really doesn't matter. All of the cases seem to be dragging on and on and on. And apparently, if you have enough funds, you don't ever have to have a conclusion. So I'm thinking the guy trying to get the welding job done, the wife trying to put the underpants on the baby and pay two bills with one check. And
also go vote, or try to find time for that, right?
I don't see them seeing that our judicial system is working.
I have a lot of confidence in our current judicial system. A lot of our judges are overwhelmed. The incoming administration has indicated through some of their recent filings that they would like to reduce the number of judges, particularly judges of color, African American judges on the Supreme Court, Fourth Circuit, and certainly in Orleans Parish. I can tell you I know a lot of our judges, and they work really hard, and they take a lot of heat. And as someone who represents people who are dying of cancer, having an expedited schedule or the ability to move cases quickly is imperative and crucial. But the backlog of cases post-COVID, the only way to push those forward is to support judges, not try and take away or reduce the number of judges. So as Attorney General, I would support the judges or increasing the number of judges we have, whether it's on the Supreme Court or any of our appellate courts or district courts. Next? Yeah. I think the PA system is broken. push this forward? Okay. I'll try to speak up. Go ahead.
If the civil case in New York against former President Donald Trump, would you bring that a similar case, that identical case in Louisiana, say if his businesses were in Louisiana? The civil case.
The civil case, so the Attorney General, Letitia James, in New York, is a friend of mine. And I actually talked to her the other day when she was, or was texting her when she was in court with Donald Trump Jr. I don't know. I don't think that, are you talking about with regard to contesting elections or filing criminal charges against Donald Trump?
I'm talking about, it's not criminal, I think it's civil case. For instance, there's no damage to any financial institution. Those loans are paid off, but she brought the case anyhow. Would you do the same thing in Louisiana?
At this time, I did not have any plans to do the same. I think the focus would be on Louisiana, not on what's on Donald Trump. So at this point, no, I do not.
Tell us why you are better qualified than your opponent to serve.
The qualifications of my opponent are stellar, but she has litigated for big businesses and corporations her entire career. I've litigated for the little guys, for workers. And especially now with the new administration we have coming in, the gubernatorial administration, it's going to be very different than what we've had in the last 8 years, right? And I think somebody's got to be, you got to have checks and balances. You have to have, yes, I'm trying here. Need to have more checks and balances. If you have a government that is entirely far-right extremists, that does not benefit or behoove the people of the state. As Attorney General, I would hold the governor accountable for decisions he makes or made on behalf of the people. He and I are not best friends, and we have never worked together. We'd be working together in the future, and hopefully would be able to have cordial discussions, but I don't think the Attorney General should be someone who is beholden to the governor. That's Jeff Landry, as the Attorney General, has kept our governor in check. So that's what I would do as the Attorney General next year. Yes.
It was recently noted in the newspaper that in this poor state of Louisiana that our judges seem to have a slush fund that's way out of proportion for most other states. Would you work to cancel that or heal that in?
I don't know anything about a slush fund for the judges. I know that they are able to take trips for CLEs and to educate themselves so that they get out of the Louisiana bubble. Because if you practice law in Louisiana, and especially if you've practiced law elsewhere like I have, I've practiced all over the country, Louisiana has a very different code. We follow the civil code, right? The Napoleonic Code, which is not followed anywhere else in the country. So adhering to that, but also keeping yourself informed and educated as a judge on other cases and other jurisdictions around the country is important. So I don't know about the slush fund that they are using, but next, yes.
Other than your political party, what really separates you from Liz Murrill in this race? What can you bring that maybe she can't?
I'm a lawyer for the people. I've always been a lawyer for the people. I'm not a lawyer for corporations or insurance companies or Jeff Landry. I'm a lawyer and will be a lawyer for the people of Louisiana to protect them and bring any reparations that they are owed. We shouldn't have Cancer Alley anymore. Cancer Alley is, that would be a big focus for me, to enforce current EPA and LDEQ and OSHA regulations to protect workers and the people who live in those areas from cancer. I think that a slap on the wrist and a little fine is not sufficient. So that would be a huge focus for me, is eliminating Cancer Alley, bringing the incidence of cancer in Louisiana down, and also supporting women's reproductive rights and ability to choose, because women in Louisiana are smart and can make their own choices, as are doctors. I don't think that the legislature or the Attorney General belongs in the room with a patient and a doctor when they're making a private medical decision. I also think that I would support having a second African American congressional district. My opponent currently is one of the main proponents fighting against that, and also to ensure that the representation in Congress and our legislature looks like the people of Louisiana. Right now it's pretty, no offense to the white men in here, but it's very white male dominated. We need more women and people of color and LGBTQ people to represent the whole state of Louisiana. That's what makes us so unique, right? Is our culture and our individuals.
One thing you said on Cancer Alley, what could you do as Attorney General to really affect that getting a better situation? I mean, is that some of the leverage that the Attorney General would have?
The Attorney General is their entire, the primary role of the Attorney General is to bring lawsuits against entities or persons who have harmed the people of Louisiana. And for some reason, no one has ever engaged in litigation against all of those 700 plus refineries who are polluting our air, earth, and water. I would file a lawsuit against them and ask that they follow EPA regulations and restrictions, because I don't think you should have to choose between having a good job and getting cancer, or leaving your home that you've lived in for 30, 40 years and getting cancer. Those corporations are making plenty of money. They don't pay taxes, property taxes. They get so many breaks here, and we want businesses to be encouraged to come to Louisiana, and they will still come here, but you just have to follow the rules and maybe protect your workers and the people that live in the communities where you're dumping carcinogens and toxins into their air, earth, and water. Yes.
Again today, I looked up the entirety of Louisiana constitutional and statutory law, and I did not see the term Solicitor General. If elected Attorney General, would you create that office again, or did? Would you define the duties, or ask the legislature to define the duties of Solicitor General?
We've never had a Solicitor General before. This last administration is a position that was created for my opponent by Governor-elect Jeff Landry. There are states that have Solicitor Generals or have a first assistant or a first deputy, and there's no way one person can handle all of this work. It is a tremendous responsibility, and there's so many different divisions. I would want someone to be my right-hand man or woman. I don't know that it would necessarily be called the Solicitor General, or that I would want the legislature to define it. I think that the Attorney General having the ability to create positions as needed is necessary without necessarily legislative oversight and definition. Does that make sense? Anyone else? Yeah. Go ahead. You voted today. I like your sticker.
Well, you're talking about having two women in the runoff for Attorney General, which we've never had before. You're also talking about being a lawyer for the people. And in order to be a lawyer for the people, you would think you would need to understand the people. You're also a beekeeper as well as being an attorney. How does that diversity help you to think outside the box and represent people and be different than just a regular old attorney?
Or a regular politician, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a politician, clearly. I came from very, very humble beginnings. My dad made $26,000 a year as a truck driver. I'm the oldest of 5 kids. I grew up below the poverty level. I didn't know milk wasn't powdered till I was 12 or 13. We raised chickens and goats and pigs, and made most of our own food. And to start from there and to get here is something that is, not to sound go me, but it's pretty incredible, right? Now, I want other women to know anything is possible. If I could make it here, coming from that, and anything is possible, because women in Louisiana they're so smart, and they're so committed to the state. And I don't want to see them leaving because they don't believe in their government or their governor or their attorney general, or they don't believe anybody is sticking up for them or advocating for them. Along my path, there have been very few people who have encouraged me or supported me, at least, certainly at the beginning at least. And I want to be that person that other women turn to and say, well, if she can do it, maybe I can do it too, right? So, does that answer? Yes.
The largest project in the state of Louisiana is the proposed widening of the Interstate 10. Our group is a citizen group, asked the Attorney General to intervene with the DOTD attorneys, which they have 50 on that staff. And they did intervene. DOTD applied for an environmental assessment and received it based on 3 lanes open all the time during construction. DOTD changed it to 2 lanes and 1 lane. The existing Attorney General has intervened on our behalf. Would you continue that intervention?
I think I would. I would work with the attorneys from the DOTD. I am somewhat familiar with that because I know Dr. Sean Wilson very well, of course, who started that project before he ran for governor. And I know several of the other guys who have been working on that project for a long time. Traffic and congestion and bridges are a problem in Louisiana. The purview of the Attorney General, if asked by a group to intervene on behalf of the people of Louisiana, is it's part of the role of the Attorney General. So if asked to intervene in a case like that, I would certainly consider it if it's in the best interest of Louisiana, which I think it would be in this case.
Going to have a $20 billion negative impact on our economy. So that too needs to be addressed.
Well, the Attorney General is supposed to be bringing money into the state through litigation. I've been involved in mass tort litigation all over the country, including opioid litigation, clean water litigation, asbestos litigation. And by that, I mean representing people who have gotten cancer, gotten sick from being poisoned by what's in their water or what's in their workplaces. And when you win, you get huge sums of money into the state. Hundreds of millions of dollars are on the table for Louisiana as we speak. That has not been tapped into because those corporations are funding some of my opponents' campaigns. So I think bringing money in is a crucial piece of what the AG does. And as Attorney General, I would be bringing in hopefully billions for the state of Louisiana. Yes.
I know there's at least one, maybe more, suits against the federal government that other attorney generals have joined in with Judge Landry. What happens to those? Do they continue? Do you take up the mantle for those?
I would take up the mantle of the current cases. I think the most recent one that that our current Attorney General, Jeff Landry, has joined in, which I agree with, is against the big tech companies. Other than that, I would explore and bring more cases against certain entities, like the Cancer Alley defendants. I'm already calling them defendants, but the Cancer Alley entities, the manufacturing facilities who are basically being paid to pollute our air, earth, and water. It should be the opposite. Anyone else? Yeah.
Obviously, Louisiana in the
last few years has had a number of cases, including right now with Baton Rouge police involving law enforcement officers being arrested, being charged with crimes. We're watching it up in Union Parish with the state troopers involved with Robert Green up there. As Attorney General, how are you going to step into that? Because I mean, those are pretty high-profile moments for Louisiana, not just for Louisiana, but for law enforcement across the country. So how would you address those type of situations?
Yeah, and I agree that they are not just high profile, they're really important. I think we need to have a civil rights division in the Attorney General's office where we have state police and someone from either the NAACP or somewhere where we can have representation and communication and come up with a plan to work with law enforcement and support them while also having accountability for treatment of certainly as African American people. It's not fair, but I also know that on the law enforcement side, I was a DA for several years, and when you see this ugliness and this hatefulness every single day, you become ingrained, your mind starts automatically assuming things about people. And we've got to stop that. That's not, law enforcement should not behave that way or should not treat people that way because they look a certain way or drive a certain type of car. They should not be persecuted or killed even by law enforcement unjustifiably. So civil rights division that's actually functioning along with the consumer advocacy and division, those are two huge pieces of what I would focus on in the Attorney General's office. Louder, louder. Okay. Anything else? Yes.
Where are you on the Supreme Court decision to send the abortion decision back to the states for them to decide?
The Supreme Court is the law of the land. That's the United States Supreme Court. I am unapologetically pro-choice, and by that I mean that women are smart, doctors are smart. Like I said earlier, the legislature and the Supreme Court, with all due respect, has no business being in that room and has no should not have their hand in that room or be in that room when there's a private medical decision being made between a woman or anyone and their doctor. That goes for trans kids. That goes for parents making decisions for their children. So, yes.
If our voter rolls are sacred or important, the Secretary of State from that podium said that people leaving locations like apartments, not putting in forward change of addresses. We've seen the absurdity of former Louisianian Shaquille O'Neal having a service thrown on his hood of his car as if he doesn't have legal interests, attorneys, etc. Les Miles, again, the same thing, former Louisiana resident, can't be found. And in apartments, people, they don't pay the rent, and then you go to court, then you're delayed, and now you get an eviction notice, then you go in and find you've had more damages than even what a reasonable deposit would be. So now would you support that the person should have reasonable knowledge that someone could go to court and get a judgment against them? Because apparently, according to my attorneys, you can't.
I think you're referencing or talking about service of process or service of a petition on anyone, right, or any entity, whether it's a juridical entity like a corporation or an individual. And I think there is, especially in Orleans Parish where I live and where my law firm is, it is very difficult, for example, in domestic violence cases, which are usually man against a woman, right? It is very difficult to even serve the defendant because all he has to do is not answer the door, right? So it's not a matter of whether your address is correct. It's having the ability for sheriffs to actually serve privately or privately serve or through the sheriff's office, being able to serve them with process or with notice of a lawsuit, because if you don't know, how are you going to be able to defend yourself? But then again, you shouldn't be able to just skirt a suit because you don't answer the door.
But if you were able to get a judgment, it would limit the reason for someone not to put in a change of address and disappear. I'm aware that if you have a mortgage holder on a Louisiana car title and they leave the state, you still got the same situation. You just have a title with a mortgage on it, but that doesn't stop somebody else. You still can't get a judgment against them because you've got to serve them wherever they went to.
Or you get a default judgment against them. There's a way to get a default judgment if you attempt service on a person or an entity multiple times, you're not able to achieve that despite your best efforts, which happens in civil litigation, certainly. And then it becomes criminal, in my opinion, if you leave the state with the car that doesn't belong to you. And I don't know how the Attorney General could, affect that. I don't know.
You would recommend legislation to address those kind of issues?
Yes, I would absolutely recommend legislation to address service of process issues, because I can tell you, even on my end, on the civil end, it is very difficult to serve even some of the big defendants that we have, because they're domiciled in one place and their registered agent will be in Baton Rouge. And if a sheriff is having to drive all the petitions out to Baton Rouge to get them stamped before they can even be distributed, sometimes those petitions get lost. I've had entire cases, petitions just get lost somehow. And it's very expensive to file those cases. And it costs the plaintiff or the litigants a lot of money. So we need a better, more efficient process for serving anyone who's involved in litigation. Yeah, so I would get involved in that. Anyone else?
Thank you so much, Ms. Cheek. Very busy lady. Next week, well, obviously, I hope everybody takes an opportunity to early vote. Let's go ahead and beat everyone at the polls. And next week, I believe we're going to have Chief Murphy Paul as he's exiting his role as Chief of Baton Rouge Police. Thank y'all so much. Oh, I gotta run off. I think you did. Oh, that's